You're listening to Murder Not Murdering with Erin,
And Autumn,
a true crime podcast about murder and murdering.
but we are not murderers.
Hey everybody, it's just little old me this week, Erin, and I'm going to be telling you about a case that is dedicated to my dear friend Autumn, since I think this is a very Autumn case. I am excited for her to hear it, especially because she's going to tell me she knew all the details of it and that she was probably going to cover it herself, but haha, I beat you to it, biatch. Anyway, I also wanted to give you all an update on a case I did a few weeks ago regarding international drag queen Heklina. There have been new developments, and Peaches Christ has had some updates. If you haven't listened to that episode, please skip ahead now or go back and listen to that case. They now have a known cause of death. Heklina was found with a lethal amount of drugs in her system, so she had a relapse. There are still questions surrounding the people on the CCTV footage, if she could have been helped or what her state was at the time that they left. There was a well-attended protest in London and San Francisco over the handling of Heklina's case, and the bias, whether conscious or not, because she was a queer person. They are now on their 5th investigator of this case, stating that they have been replaced due to said biases. We are sending love, and I hope that Peaches and Nancy French will get the answers and closure that they have been needing for the last 2 years since Heklina's death. I will continue to follow this case and keep you posted as it develops. Okay, so let's get into today's case. It's local and pretty well known. However, I hadn't heard of it until the other day. I really love local cases because I actually know how to pronounce all the words. That's sometimes challenging for us. And I always feel an immediate connection to the case, knowing the places that they have been or what they had been up to in my neck of the woods. If you do know any local cases to Washington State or the Seattle area, please send them to our DMs on Instagram, and any hometown cases for that matter anywhere else. We love hearing from our listeners, and because we love cases with a personal connection, whether it's local to us or local to you. Okay, the time has come. My case today is the Queen of Hearts. Susan Schwartz was born September 16th, 1955. She attended Bothell High School in Bothell, Washington, where she is described as kind-hearted and loving. She grew to be a vibrant 24-year-old woman living in the Alderwood area of Linwood, Washington. She was living with her boyfriend. She was also close to her friends, her brother Gary, her sister Valerie, and her father Henry. One fall day, on October 22nd, 1979, Susan's boyfriend arrived home to find an especially heinous scene. Susan was found naked, hands bound by an electrical cord. Her mouth was gagged with a black bra, and she had a gunshot wound to the back of her head. There was a pillow by her head with blood on it and a gunshot hole, so it was used to muffle the sound. 22 caliber gun shell casings were found on the floor. Investigators described her crime scene as that she had been killed execution style. The first question was, could this have been a burglary gone wrong? However, nothing appeared to be taken, and furthermore, most times, burglars flee the home in hopes not to get caught. They wouldn't take the time to strip and bound someone. There are very little clues to go off of, but they did find her plush carpet had 2 sets of footprints throughout. Some were indentations and others had bloodstains on them. One set was smaller and the other larger. There weren't any barefoot footprints, so Susan was ruled out as the smaller set. Police knew now that they were looking for 2 suspects. This left our family and friends asking so many questions. They were shocked, angry, sad, and wanted answers. The cause of death was released the day after Susan's body was found. She died from multiple gunshot wounds to her head. Though she had been found naked, there were no signs of sexual assault. In addition to the gunshot wounds, she had lacerations to her head and face, showing that this had been an attack, and she may have been dazed by the first hit, allowing her attacker to have the time to bound her. Police began to question people of interest. One such person was her high school friend, Karen Smith. She and Susan were close. Karen was married to a man named Gregory Johnson, but had recently separated from him due to domestic abuse. The police questioned Karen, asking if someone had any grudges against Susan, or who would want to hurt her. Karen knew her husband Gregory hated her because she saw the writing on the wall with him, and she knew that he had abused her friend. She encouraged Karen to leave him because he was harming her. She told Karen that she didn't trust him. So detectives questioned Gregory Johnson about where his whereabouts were on that day. They said that he was cooperative and that he told them that he wasn't around. He was out fishing. They questioned the people he was with that day, and most said that they weren't sure. Their memories were a little fuzzy. They couldn't fully tell them that he was there. Gregory remained a person of interest, but with very little to go on. Months went by, then years, until January 17th, 1986, nearly 6.5 years since Susan's death. There had been a murder in Seattle that had too many similarities to Susan's murder to ignore. The woman was Molly McClure. She was found bound by an electrical cord. She was also gagged and had injuries to her head and found on her stomach. Sadly, in Molly's case, she was sexually assaulted. This might lead you to think that the killer may have escalated. Police quickly found a suspect who lived in her building named Sherwood Knight. He did have a criminal record, and they said he also had a connection and that Sherwood knew both victims. Because you see, Sherwood was half-brothers with Gregory Johnson. Snohomish detectives find Gregory in prison doing time for robbery. At this point, he has established that he is a career criminal, and he tells investigators that he has some information for them from the day of Susan's murder. He tells them he was actually with his brother, Sherwood, and driving him around with a couple of other guys looking for a house to burglarize. He said they pulled in a driveway and the 3 men went out. He stayed in the car. When they came out, he saw that Sherwood had a gun in his hand. And he said, "We'd better not get caught for this one." Then later that night, he saw a newscast saying that Susan had been found dead in her home. Given the source and evidence, this is still not enough to convict anyone, Sherwood or Gregory. The case grows colder, but detectives refuse to give up. Jump forward to 2009, when they try an innovative new tactic that some prisons were using. They were printing cold cases with photos of victims on playing cards and distributing them to local prisons in hopes that an inmate would overhear something or remember a clue for the cases. A detective in Florida had already solved over 6 cases this way. There was also a reward by Crime Stoppers included to add an incentive to the prisoners. They put Susan on the Queen of Hearts. Then one day, in 2011, Sherwood Knight was playing with one of these decks while imprisoned for a life sentence. He noticed the picture was Susan and called Crime Stoppers, saying that he had important information regarding Susan Schwarz. He said that on the day of her murder, he was down fishing at the pier, and Gregory Johnson, his half-brother, pulled up. Gregory tells Sherwood that if the police come asking about him, he is to tell them that he was fishing with him all day. When he asks why, that's when Gregory tells him he killed Susan Schwarz. Sherwood said that he was shocked, but he also saw that when Gregory went back to the car, there was a girl sitting in the front seat. So if Gregory killed Susan, the police may want to look into who that woman was on that day. On April 22nd, 2011, 31 years and 7 months after Susan's murder, they find that woman. She confirmed that she was 17 years old and had been dating Gregory at the time of the murder. He was unsurprisingly abusive and threatening to her. Investigators explained to her that at the crime scene, they had found 2 sets of footprints, including one smaller set, and they would like a DNA sample from her to rule her out. That's when her demeanor changed. She lowered her head and said, "I was there. I was there." They refer to her as MM since she did not want her name out there. She begins to tell the police what had happened on that day that she will never forget. She said that they went to Susan's house and she witnessed Gregory put a pillow over Susan's head and shoot. He looked up and saw that she had just seen what had happened. So he shot Susan 2 more times and said, "That's what happens to people who mess with me. Don't you ever tell anyone what you saw, or I will kill you and I will kill your mother." You see, the young woman was only 17. And when she first started seeing Gregory, it was about 9 months after the death of her father. As abusers tend to do, when he was dating her, he isolated her away from her mother and family. She moved in with him, and the relationship quickly became violent. He threatened to hurt her if she left him. He also allowed his friends to abuse her. On the day of the murder, he told her that he was collecting money from someone who had owed him drugs. She was meant to stay in the car. After it was over, he told her that the police would suspect her because she was there and think that she was involved. She was scared. The woman told the Everett Herald, "I can't say I did it right, but I did the best I could. I was sorry Sue was dead. I'd have done anything in my power possible at the time to stop it if I could have. She wasn't coming back, though. I knew my mother would be a victim. I had to protect my mom." Luckily for her, the woman split up with Gregory. She tried to put the past behind her, breaking off ties with her high school friends. She stopped going by her childhood nickname. She became a nurse and a mother, but she never stopped looking over her shoulder. She said that Gregory called her at her mother's house after he got out of prison for robbery. The woman was just visiting her mom, but she spoke with him. He reminded her that he was still around, and he knew how to reach her family. "It drags on you," she said. She said she thought of Susan often and said she didn't deserve that. She was only standing up against abuse. Her family deserved to have answers long ago. Even though it took so long, finally, it was Gregory Johnson's day in court for the murder of Susan Schwartz. 32 years after her murder, on January 27th, 2012, prosecutors had to make a choice: make a plea deal for a confession or going through the long drawn-out process of a case. They chose not to put Susan's family through that. Gregory Johnson pled guilty to second-degree murder. The recommendation was 298 months, which is nearly 25 years, and the judge agreed, and he was sentenced. During the sentencing, he blamed Susan for what he called meddling in his relationship and showed no remorse. Gregory's ex-wife and Susan's high school friend Karen said, "I never thought Greg was capable of murder. I used to feel guilty for introducing him to Sue, but now it just makes me mad." Henry Schwartz, Susan's father, now 82 years old, got the news of the arrest from an Associated Press reporter. He said, "I was shocked to get a call that was from someone I didn't know. And then I got a call from all these other TV stations." He also told the Kirkland Reporter that he has to forget October 22nd, 1979, to continue living. But now he knows who the man is that took his daughter. He was glad to have some sense of closure. Truly, It was the only way I could deal with it, said Henry, about trying to forget. I had to play like it never happened. I buried it so deep now, it's just words. The media attention and Susan's murder has been the toughest on Susan's brother Gary, who also graduated from Bothell High School and is now a resident of Stanwood, Washington. Susan's father said, "When she died, I wrapped up her memory in blankets and tried to forget it. Gary took it much harder. Those two were like peas in a pod." He said he truly hopes that the family will find the closure that they all needed so badly. Gary Schwartz had learned how to live without knowing who took his big sister's life. He had no choice. He always carried some hope that the killer would be caught. But he was also worried that the person would hurt others. Now, he and his younger sister Valerie finally got to face the man who robbed them of their sister. The desire to help her friend should not have cost Sue her life, Gary said. The defendant's motivation to kill her was as senseless as the man's existence. He took from our family our sense of security, our belief in kindness in others, our belief in right and wrong, but most of all, he took Sue from us forever. Valerie wrote that in a letter to the judge. Gary asked the judge to protect the woman who helped the detectives and Snohomish County prosecutor, Lisa Paul, to put Gregory behind bars. He said that he feared for the woman's safety, and if the convicted killer was released anytime soon, he was for sure to go after her. Gary Schwartz met with the woman in January after the defendant pleaded guilty. The woman felt that she owed the family an explanation and an apology. They hugged her as Gregory was hauled away in handcuffs. They were grateful the woman broke her silence, thankful for the determination of the detectives who didn't forget their sister, and the program who made her the Queen of Hearts. My sources were the Everett Herald, Como 4 News, the Seattle Times, the Kirkland Reporter, CBS News, and the A&E show Cold Case. This is a sad story, but I think an important one in both that we'll never forget Susan Schwartz, and it's a reminder that domestic abuse is a cycle, and it spreads so far. It's extremely difficult to get out of. The ingenuity of the investigators using the cold case playing cards has solved many cases locally, throughout the country, and has even made it into programs worldwide. We will be back next week with both of us, so in the meantime, get caught up on old episodes. Follow our Instagram for photos from this case and many more. And remember, true crimers, we don't know what will trigger a memory. And as we share these cases, the hope is that it will lead to information or solve more cases. Trust your gut, don't date abusive assholes, and take care of your friends. Thank you for listening, and we will be back next week. Bye.